Today I'm going to show you a recipe idea I got off a Tasty video doing multiple desserts in one pan and sheets. So I've actually been saving this recipe for years. I've wanted to try it. So finally for New Year's, I figured it is a good time to try it out. You want to first start with spraying your pans with just some cooking spray, lining some parchment paper down just so that it helps things so that they don't stick. So that's very important here. You don't want stuff to stick. Actually, I really didn't have a hard time with things sticking. Now, I changed the recipes up a little bit from what Tasty had. Starting off here, we've got chocolate chip cookie dough, and that's the same as Tasty did. The next one I do is M&M cookie dough. Super, and they also did that. Those were super easy because literally, you make the same cookie dough, just split it in half and add chocolate chips to one, M&Ms to another. Easy, easy. And the great thing about these is the dough is so thick, it kind of holds its own boundaries. And so you definitely want to start with these, but keep in mind as you're making these batters and things for this multiple dessert in one pan experiment, whatever you want to call it, you want your batters as thick as possible. So this was our first time trying it, and definitely we learned some things that we would do differently if we were to make this again. But the biggest thing is you just want to make things as thick as possible just because they will really hold their boundaries and stay where they're supposed to. So we got our chocolate chip cookies and our M&M cookies. This next layer, so in the Tasty video, they did a s'mores layer, and we're not big fans of s'mores. I mean, we like them over the fire, but not necessarily baked like this. So instead of s'mores, we did magic cookie bars. Very similar. It's got a graham cracker base, and then it's just very simple, easy ingredients, and I figured it would work great for this, and it did. So if you want, you could just do s'mores. For the s'mores, they just did marshmallows and chocolate chips. For the magic cookie bar, it's a couple more ingredients, but it's still not that complicated. Oh, that's the great thing too about having everything on the parchment. If you get off, so the graham crackers need an exact space, right, to fit in. So you can just slide your parchment down a little bit to make sure that the graham crackers fit perfectly. That was a super convenient that I didn't even realize till I had it in there. So that was definitely a perk of having the parchment paper down. Once you got your graham crackers border, and I'm going to tell you, these graham cracker borders are tricky. Oh my gosh, they're hard to get to stay in place and all that, the sides. So once you get the graham crackers down, you do your chocolate chips, a little bit of coconut. If you want, you can do some nuts like pecans, almonds, walnuts, whatever. I'm not a big nut fan, but I did later. I added them on top, and I'll show you that later in the video here. And you could also add butterscotch chips or whatever if you wanted. Then you're going to just top it with sweetened condensed milk. So I was making 2 trays, which I found was really easy to do this in 2 trays because a lot of the recipes, like the brownie mix, I could do 1 box of brownie mix and split it between the 2. And for the pumpkin chocolate chip cookies, I could do 1 box of the cake mix and then split it between the 2. So for me, that was just easier. But if you're only doing 1, you'll just want to half things, and I didn't want a bunch of extras left over. So I think I used half a can between both pans of the sweetened condensed milk, and then I ended up just adding the other half of the can to the cheesecake layer, which you can totally do. You don't have to do. It's not going to alter it really if you don't. So I just had it extra, so I figured why not. So we've got our magic cookie bar, our chocolate chip cookies, and our M&M cookies. Now laying down the graham crackers. This is going to be for the cheesecake layer coming up. And again, these graham crackers were a nightmare trying to get the sides to stay up and stay where they're supposed to be. But again, remember, whatever batters you use, the thicker, the better. The next thing that I did a little bit different than the Tasty one, so I didn't have pie dough. I thought I had some pie crust, and I could have made pie crust. It's fairly easy, but I didn't want to. We're not big pie eaters. So instead, I did a lemon bar, and that's what I'm putting here at the bottom. Now, if you've ever made lemon bars, you cook the crust first, and then you add the lemon filling. So this is going to be the only one. We're going to cook it, all of this together for about 5-10 minutes, and then we'll add the lemon filling. And honestly, that was probably everybody's favorite one of all this multi-dessert. The lemon bars were the first to go. So that definitely was worth doing. And the cool thing about doing the crust is you can make kind of a little bridge there. So build up the sides to help hold that lemon curd in place, and you can kind of mold it up on the sides, and that works out great. So we did that, and the next one that we're going to do here is the peanut butter bar. So we did peanut butter bars instead of banana bread. The Tasty video, they did banana bread, and I didn't feel like banana bread went with all these other desserts. So instead we did the peanut butter bars, kind of like at the school cafeteria lunch. They usually have a chocolate frosting. We ended up not doing the frosting, but you could, if you wanted that, when it cooled off, add the frosting. It's just like an oatmeal peanut butter bar. Now for the brownie layer. So again, I thought this brownie batter was pretty thick. It's not. We quickly learned that once we started pouring it in, because that's when it became apparent our graham cracker layers were, they were a nightmare getting them to stay. So that, if I were to do this dessert again, I would definitely make sure your brownie batter super thick, even if you have to not add water, or I think we only added half as much water as the box recipe called for. So I would, you just want it really thick. You might even be better off. Usually my homemade from scratch brownie batters tend to be a lot thicker than the boxes or the bags. So I might even do that next time, just so it's more of a dough, like the cookie dough. And I think it wouldn't be as messy, and it would stay in its lane a little bit better. Because as you can tell, like, that was a struggle. My son was helping me, and that was a struggle, just getting it to like hold and stay in place, and not bleed through the graham cracker border there, which it totally did. But it's all good, right? It's a mixture, and that's part of the beauty of this, is you have so many multiple desserts side by side. You get a little bit of taste of more than one. So that's part of the fun. Now this next one I did, instead of, so the two ends where I did my lemon bar and right now I'm doing a pumpkin chocolate chip cookie. In the Tasty video, they did pumpkin pie and apple pie. And like I said, I didn't have the pie crust, and we're not big pie eaters, so we did these instead, and they worked just great. So the last one we've got now is the cheesecake layer. Oh, I added a little bit of nuts. I decided to put some nuts on the magic cookie bar. And then now cheesecake. Again, this cheesecake layer was super, super thin and runny. If you can make your cheesecake a little bit thicker, we probably should have added some flour, maybe a little bit more sugar, or just maybe one less egg, something like that, to thicken it up. And it set up and it cooked just fine, but it was mostly getting it to that point and not having it bleed through the edges. So now that we have all of our desserts, we're going to put them in the oven. Now remember, low and slow for this recipe. So I only had the oven set at 300 degrees, and after about 5-10 minutes, now it's time to add the lemon curd topping this is for the lemon bars. So just pull it out. Everything on there has been baking 5 to 10 minutes at about 300 degrees. And so that's just enough to get that crust cooking a little bit on that lemon bar crust. And then we add the lemon curd, and then now everything's going to cook together. So that's the only thing. You want to give that crust just a little bit of extra time, a jump start on the cooking. And that worked perfectly. We didn't have any issues. Like I said, the lemon bar was probably everybody's favorite. That's everybody ate first. So cook it low and slow. Here you go. Obviously, the borders were not necessarily respected. But when you're cutting them, you want to remember to cut them so that people get a piece where they can have 2 or more different flavors in one little bar. And that's part of the fun of a recipe like this, is it's a multi dessert in one tray. So it was a lot of fun. I don't know if I would do it again. Maybe if we were doing a big party or something like that. It was more the novelty, and but it was fun doing. And my son helped me, and the kids, and we all had fun. And we did it for New Year's Eve. It was great because you had all this variety of desserts in one pan and for one night. It was pretty fun, a good variety. Gave us all good variety baking all at the same time. And it's super easy, and it was kind of impressive. Like you can see here, it comes out of the pan fairly easy, and we just put them out on trays. You could even serve them out of the pan if you want, but we just put them on some charger plates and let everybody pick and choose what they were in the mood for, and it worked great. And the great thing about this, we were playing games, so it was a great finger food. It wasn't super messy. I did sprinkle a little powdered sugar on top of the lemon bars, and but it wasn't a super messy treat or dessert. You almost didn't even really need a plate. You could just have some napkins and or everybody kind of munch on. And I mean, you could cut these a lot smaller than I did too. So I didn't want a ton of leftovers. So honestly, I cut them kind of big pieces so that we wouldn't have as many leftovers. But everything worked out really good. I'm really pleased with the substitutions that we did from the Tasty video. It wasn't as pretty as the Tasty video. I think that's gonna take some practice, some time and practice, and you could get it to look really nice. But for our first go, it really wasn't that bad. It gave us a good variety, and there we had for our game night. Thanks for watching. Be sure and like and subscribe and check out my blog for the recipes.